guys, today we're going to be teaching you how to build a BMX bike from the frame up and the entire process it takes to put it all together. So the first thing that I would do when building a frame is put your bearings and spindle in first. It makes it easier when you're pounding your bearings in. You just put a piece of 2x4 right underneath, put one on top, and then you just pound your bearings in, slide your spindle in, and then just throw the other bearing in. I feel like when you do that first, it's a lot easier because you don't have all your parts that are weighing the bike down and just moving all around. So that would, for me, that would be the first step that I would do. And then after that, you can kind of go in any direction you want, but I like to throw the forks, front tire, stem, and the bars on first. So I can use that stand over there to keep the bike up while I'm working on the rest of it.
And in case you don't know, for some reason, these are the forks. Those are the bearings, that's what they look like. And they can be, these ones are like seated bearings basically. And then there's like exposed ones.
We have to throw each individual bearing in with a bunch of grease. Those are overall better and they last a lot longer than the exposed bearings. So if you are planning on building up a bike or buying parts, I would recommend that you would buy sealed bearings, not unsealed.
Yeah, so some bikes you can't have sealed bearings, like this one specifically. These cups are part of the frame. On some bikes, those are pushed in, and you could see because they're usually a different color, but they're just pushed in with like a hammer or something or a machine. But those you can't put in these type bearings, so keep that in mind. And it's the same thing with your bottom bracket bearing or your bearings down here. Some are pressed in and then some are part of the frame, and you would know the exposed bearings, like you can see the little balls and stuff in them. These ones are like, you can see them covered with something.
Yeah, they're the sealed. And for this frame, this is the Jordan Goodwin signature Doomsayer frame off of We the People Bike Co. This is one of the best frames that I've ridden. We both have the same frame. That's how good it is. We bought the same one because we just love the specs of it. So the bottom the bottom bracket, I'm pretty sure this takes 22 millimeter bearings, and the spindle should be, I think that's a 7 millimeter spindle. And then it leads to the cranks, and you can kind of choose whichever size of cranks you like. There's shorter cranks which range from 165 to 170, and then there's bigger cranks which go from 170 to 175 millimeters, and that just determines the length of where you connect your spindle and you connect your pedal. That's what the different sizes of cranks mean. So if you like, essentially it gives you longer travel. So when you pedal like a little bit faster, and it just gets you moving faster too.
Yep. So that's pretty much it on, explaining the basics of what you might need for your bike. If you have parts that say don't fit or anything, and there's nothing you can really do, you just have to go buy the right kind, but you have to make sure, have the measurements for your bike if you're gonna get something like the bearings or the spindle, what it needs.
Yeah, and normally when you buy a frame, you can check the website, and right underneath the frame, it shows all of the specs and the parts that are required to put on there for it to fit correctly. All right, so after you've finished throwing in your bottom bracket and spindle, the next step that I would recommend doing, like the easiest way that I find it to build up a BMX bike, is you go onto the forks and the headset bearings. Because after that, the bike will be able to stand up on itself, and you'll be able to throw on the stem, the bars, your grips, and then you just wheels, cranks, just all in that order. I just feel like putting the forks on first is the easiest way. So the first step of putting forks on is, I normally slide a bearing onto the fork. We already have this fork pre-greased. So if you don't have your fork greased, I would. It makes the fork last longer and the bearings have a longer life. So after that, I would lift up your bike, throw that on there, sits in there real nicely. Grab your next bearing, slide it on, push it in there. And then you put your shim that goes on top, slide that right in, and that's done with the headset bearings. Then after that, you grab your headset spacer which covers the bearings. That slides right on there too. This one has a little logo on it. What I like to do is I like to point the logo towards it, because when you're riding, you'll actually get to see the logo. After that, you grab your spacers so that your stem is at the right height, and that's how you build up a headset.
Yep. You just slide this right on there, and that's it. That's your stem. Obviously, the top piece goes right on there, which holds your bars.
And when you're building up your fork, there's different sizes of headsets. So you want to use the correct amount of spacers.
Yeah, otherwise you'll have a bunch of the fork kind of sitting up, which when you put...
It will prevent it from getting tight.
Yeah, so when you put this in there and screw it in, it won't seat all the way on this, so this will be loose. So you gotta make sure you have the perfect amount of spacers so you can tighten it without, you know, it just sitting on the fork and not doing anything. Because the fork can, if you don't have these, my fork would probably be sitting up here.
Yeah, we can take that out and check it.
And then, so then, yeah, when you go to tighten, you're not
getting any tension onto your stem.
Ain't sitting on the stem, so you're not gonna be able to tighten it down.
Yeah.
So make sure you have the correct amount of spacers.
So I'll do the little one at the bottom first. Like that.
So once you get the headset bolt down, usually I just snug it. Then I would put on your front tire and then throw your bars on. And then you can put your seat on, which will make things like way easier so you can sit down. But so this is straight with your wheel, because it's really annoying if it's a little sideways and the wheel's straight. But we have to throw these wheels together real quick. I'll show you how to do that. And throw this whole thing together. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to put your rim on your tire, and then we'll put the tube on, but rim on the tire first. Just don't even mess with that. It'll make things way more difficult. But if you look, there's a lip right here on the rim, and then the tire has a lip as well. So you just wanna do one side. So this lip on this, you just start with the one side and then you work your way around. It'd make it a lot easier if you had tire levers, which I don't. I'm using the back end of pliers. So it's not, it'll probably damage your rim, but that's all I got. So, but having some plastic rim tools will help you out. So my struggle is here. I got it all the way around except this side right here. And I could just slip it on really easily if I had a tire lever, which I could just pop in. But I'm stuck with these crappy pliers. I mean, it's a little bit of a struggle if you don't have these tire levers.
There you go. Yeah.
So I got that popped in. It was really difficult. You could put it in way easier if you had this plier or the tire levers that I was talking about. I don't have, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get this other side on. So what you're going to want to do from this point is grab your tube, which I'm going to probably air this up a little bit, having a little bit of air in it to make it, you know, circular and it'll not fold up, because sometimes you put it in there and it'll crease and stuff like this. So you always want to have just like a little bit of air in there. So I'm gonna go do that right now. Okay, so this is how to throw your tube in after you got your rim kind of seated in there. What I like to do is find the hole in the rim that goes for the valve cap, which is right here. You'll find a hole in your rim, looks like that. Just slip it right through there. I have to angle it in there. Okay, so once you have that in there, I'd throw a valve cap on it so it can't slide out when you go to throw the tube on, because that sucks. Had it happen to me. You put all the tube on, then you push the sides in, and it twists, and the valve caps isn't there, and you have to do it all over again. So wherever the valve cap is, once you have the valve stem seated like that, throw your valve cap on there. This one is fucking not the right size. There you go. So once you have that on there, like so, you're just gonna throw the tube in there. It's gonna be really easy. And then you're just gonna wanna do the same thing you did on the other side, on this side. Just gonna push it on there. So that's it. Tires on, you see put air in it. Okay, and then next thing, I'm just gonna throw the seat on so I can have a place to sit when I put the bars on and stuff to line it up with the tire. So some seat tubes come with it's basically just a tightener, but it's built in, and then some come without, and you have to get these. It's just a little clamp. So this one has the clamp. I mean, all you do, it's pretty easy, just slide it in there. And then you can pick your height. Usually everyone runs them really low.
So after you get the tires set up, the front and the rear, the next step that I would recommend is to put the bars on lightly, so that when you put your front tire on, you're able to adjust the bars to the height that you like them, or the angle that you like them. So if you ride a bit forward or backwards, I just put the bars on as straight as possible at the beginning, so that when we tighten everything, when it starts turning the crank or the forks, you can make the tire in line with the center of your stem, so you know that you're riding in a straight line.
Usually most people run the bars lined up with the forks, so try to draw
slightly forward.
Yeah, usually I try to just draw like a straight line straight up and then have the bars kind of follow the same angle as the forks. That's how I normally do it. But I mean, it's all preference. You can have it more forward if you're taller even, you can just throw some more spacers on the stem.
Yeah, so when I put the stem on, I normally just have these bars pushed all the way down like this. It just makes it easier, it just sits there. And then whenever you are ready to tighten, you just lift them back up. Get your tool. And then you have to tighten them in a sort of like X pattern.
But also, once you tighten that bolt, you're gonna have these two on either side, which just clamps to the forks. And then all that bolt up there does is like push the stem down, kind of just compresses it. So you don't wanna over tighten that. There's like really no point to it. You're gonna wanna tighten these though pretty tight.
Yeah.
It'll take a minute, so we'll cut over. No, it's a fucking gas cap. No. Drop it. Drop it. Drop it, you fuck. It's a gas cap. No. Where did you get that? Jesus Christ. Yeah. Yeah, I'll keep that on the fuel can there. No. You can't eat fuel, dude. No. I mean, fuck, if you're gonna do fuel, I mean, try the two-stroke fuel. Perfect mix. So I'm gonna throw this front wheel on. Also, another thing to keep in mind is your tread. Make sure it's facing the right way, which tread should go this way. See how the arrow is kind of pointing this way? So you want the front and back to match.
So after you put the bars, stem, forks, and tire on, and you have them all straight and dialed into the way that you like them, the next step I would do would be the cranks, sprocket, and the crank compression. So the first step of putting on your cranks is to put a spacer in between your bearings, or a cup, but for this bike we have a spacer right here. You just slide that right over your spindle, and then this sprocket requires a shim that goes into the sprocket, and then that slides right onto the spindle. And then that side is done. Then you just put a little threads on there so it doesn't fall off. And then we move over to the next side. You essentially do the same thing, except you don't have a sprocket on this side, obviously. So you slide on your spacer, and then you just put on your crank at kind of a, so one crank has to be at a 12 o'clock, and then the other crank has to be at like a 6 o'clock. So you want a straight line across it, or else, you know, pedaling is gonna be weird. And then you lightly tighten these on, and now they will not come off. And there you go. That's how you put cranks on.
Okay, and we're putting the pedals on, and they're pretty like self-explanatory. I mean, you just screw it on there.
And then with these pedals, they look down right on where the thread is. It should say either left or right, and then you just put that on the corresponding side.
The cranks, just make sure you tighten this bolt right here.
Really tight.
Yeah, tight enough. I mean, if you over tighten it, it'll kind of like, these will struggle to spin your cranks, and it's just because it's compressing the bearings so hard. So you just loosen them up. Okay, also I didn't mention what you want to do with your grips. I didn't take mine off. It's just because I don't have an air compressor right now. But what you can do is you just stick the end of an air compressor right in here, blow air in, and you can either take it off that way or put it on, and you kind of just put the end right here in that little gap and blow the air in there and kind of work it up. The other way is, if you don't have an air compressor, you can use hairspray, and you just spray the bar on the inside of the grip with the hairspray, and it kind of makes it slippery, and you can slide it on. But you have to wait about an hour afterwards, because the hairspray takes a while to dry and gets sticky. So, okay, so what you're gonna wanna do with your chain is, what I do is make sure it's straightened out. It looks like this. You know what I mean? It's not, this side isn't over here. It's like this. And then what I like to do is just throw it right over the crank. Don't put it on the sprocket. Just kind of let it sit right there on the frame. And then you're gonna wanna slide it on the outside like this. So when you put your wheel in, it's not in the way. It'd be much easier if you had a bike stand. So, and then once it's in, drop that on there. Tighten these up so your wheel doesn't slide out. And then I usually kind of just keep it snug, have it pushed all the way forward, and then you just roll it right on here. It's just, you want to have that the back bolt loose and pushed as far as you can forward, so you don't break any teeth on your sprocket when you go to pedal it forward like this. Hold on. So, just like that, but make sure this is pushed all the way forward, so when you rotate it, you don't break any sprocket teeth. And then to tighten it, it's pretty simple. You just pull back on the back wheel, and it makes the chain tighter. They're a little tedious sometimes. So I usually put my foot on the crank, pushing it out if you have the right setup like this. And then you're gonna want to tighten sides evenly. Kind of make sure your wheel isn't in here cockeyed, make sure it's straight. And the bolt on this side, the threads are messed up, so it kind of wants to spin the whole axle. Snug both sides. And then you're good to tighten it down. Make sure it didn't, sometimes when you're pulling it around it loosens, but I like to have my chain pretty tight. So you literally just pull back on the wheel and tighten at the same time.
Yeah, and then with how tight your chain is, it's all about preference. We have a friend that rides Free Coaster. He rides his chain super loose. We ride cassette. We ride them really tight. It's just all about preference. So.
You can kind of tighten it as much as you want, as long as those back lugs are snug on there and the wheel won't fall out.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helped you if you had a issue with your bike or something, or you're just, you know, bored and watching one of these videos. But if you have any issue or need a question answered, just leave it in the comments, or you can DM us on our Instagram. I think it's at deadstopbmx. I'll leave a thing up here for it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one.